Welcome to The Nation. I'm Rachel Smalley. The Hawke's Bay is known as the fruit bowl of the country, but a series of droughts over the past few years may turn that sour. This year's drought is the worst on record since 1945. Hawke's Bay Regional Council has placed restrictions on water use in the region. That's infuriated growers and some farmers too. And the council wants to build a dam at Ruataniwha. That wouldn't be in service until 2017. And while farmers are welcoming that, some growers say the dam will be in the wrong place to be of any benefit to them. Let's go to our guest now here in the studio with me. I'm joined by Mr Paynter, Managing Director of the Yummy Fruit Company and a spokesperson for the Growers Action Group. Also Neil Deans, Fish and Game Resource Management Coordinator. In Hastings, we have Fenton Wilson, Chairman of Hawke's Bay Regional Council. And in Wellington, Connor English, CEO of Federated Farmers. Good morning to you all. Thank you all so much for joining us. Fenton Wilson, if I could start with you, what's your case for this dam?
The Ruataniwha Dam.
Yes.
The issue started with the Tukitook River and issues of low flows in the summer and lack of opportunity for new irrigators, and there's a lot of pressure on us for people wanting more water. Let's cut to the chase here. Water is the wealth of New Zealand. Fresh water is our lifeblood, and I'd actually like to thank the GAG group for drawing attention to this with their rally recently, because it's a national issue. There's tension between economy and environment in every aspect of fresh water. Fresh water occurs naturally around the country. When we irrigate, we put challenges on the in-stream values.
And by GAG group, you're talking about the Growers Action Group, where Mr Paynter is the spokesperson and is with us here. Give us a little idea, if you will, of the impact of the drought and what that had on growers in the last summer.
Well, I was talking to my 4-year-old about it yesterday, and I said, what would happen if Daddy didn't water his trees? And he looked at me and without hesitation said, they would die. So either the Regional Council have been intellectually outgunned by a 4-year-old or they don't care. And that's what happened. We had trees that died this year, and really they've undermined the investment in Hawke's Bay. I mean, these trees have a 40 or so year life, and if you start having dead trees, you really impact on the confidence and the investment in the region.
So what's the issue here? Will the Ruataniwha Dam help that? Is there an issue with allocation?
No,
what's your problem?
The Ruataniwha Dam is 50 kilometres south. Not one drop of water will flow to our growers. The economic engine in Hawke's Bay is the Ruataniwha Plains around Hastings, where all of the wine and the fruit growing comes from. The Ruataniwha Dam is located near a sort of stony soiled barren wasteland.
Right.
So they're hoping investment will come down there for dairying and other things, but it will not help our industry one bit. It's been a huge distraction.
Okay, well, let me just go back to Fenton, because the vineyards, they don't need the water, but certainly the stone fruit and the apple growers do. Are you just looking after farmers in that region if there's no real need for the water in that area?
Not at all. I really struggle with this argument on the basis that we've done pre-feasibility work in the Ruataniwha for storage, and that is the next cab off the rank. We can't do the whole lot at the same time, but I mean, if a 4-year-old's providing the advice to GAG...
Who's that going to help?
Hawke's Bay.
Well, Mr Paynter says it won't help all of Hawke's Bay. Is it about looking after...
It won't, but the next phase will absolutely help Ruataniwha. The issue that we have, and I'm yet to see a dead tree, and I challenge Mr Paynter when he gets back to Hawke's Bay to take me to an orchard and show me one.
He's here holding up pictures.
Fenton, how many orchards have you been to? Have you been to any orchards and seen the dead trees? Have you talked to the growers that are suffering under your management? How many orchards have you been to?
How many have I been invited to, Mr Paynter? That's the challenge.
Well, a chairman showing good leadership should want to see his suffering constituents.
Absolute leadership. And we don't resile from the fact that we're in a process to help both the economy and the environment.
And are you doing that to help an area that can be intensified for dairying?
Intensified for all sorts of things. I mean,
apparently the soil there is not great for growing stone fruit, growing trees.
There's a mixture of soils down there, but let's come back to the Ruataniwha Plains. I mean, when irrigation first started here, it was dairying, and look what's happened since. It's a myriad of opportunity with the use of water. The issue they have is security of water, and we're going to address that. But you can't just keep taking water out of the ground and not have an impact on the environment. And I suggest to Mr Paynter, if they're using a 4-year-old for their advice, he should actually get some science into the game and give us some options. We want to work together on this.
We'd like some science, Fenton, but we can't get hold of your model. We even offered to pay for it. There's a lack of... It's a little bit like the dam situation. It's all lack of transparency, not a very good engagement with the community. Just trying to ram things through and not engaging.
Let me just bring in Neil Deans here from Fish and Game, because you don't want the dam, do you? Why don't you want it?
We don't want... Well, we don't want the effects of the dam that's proposed in the Ruataniwha.
So what will those effects be?
Well, the issue, and this is an issue across New Zealand, is that when you store water and then use it on the land, and in order to pay for that, you have to intensify that land use. The runoff from that intensified land use finishes up in your waterways.
So we're talking about fishing here, aren't we? We're talking about trout fishing.
We're not just talking about trout fishing, we're also talking about other species and other uses of our waterways. The Tukituki River is a very important river in Hawke's Bay, and why should... I mean, there's tremendous problems there now, as Fenton indicated earlier, from low flows, and a dam might improve that, so that's good. But at the moment, there's also water quality issues there, and the risk is that the intensification of land use will result in even more water quality problems.
Are you assuming here it will be intensified for dairy?
Well, you've got to ask yourself, and economic modelling needs to be done to work out what the alternatives are, but I'm not a horticulturalist, but my understanding is that there's not a great deal of suitable area for that for the reasons of climate and soils and so on.
That's right.
So the likelihood is that pastoral farming, and most likely dairying, would be the result that would be able to afford the costs that will be imposed on landowners to pay for this dam.
All right, let me bring in Connor English here. It seems that, Connor, that the Ruataniwha is throwing up a choice here, essentially between economic growth and the environment, if we can just put some of the other growers to one side in Hawke's Bay. How do you make that choice?
Well, look, I think you've got to look at it in the broader context, Rachel. If you look at Hawke's Bay, there's some wonderful people in Hawke's Bay, and it's an area that's got a lot of promise. Unfortunately, the reality there is that it's got very flat population, it's got an ageing population, the 20 to 30-year-olds are leaving that region, it's got high unemployment at 8.4%. Its crime rate, the crime rate for New Zealand per 1,000 people is 39.9. In Hawke's Bay in the eastern region, which does include Gisborne, it's 112. So it's got a lot of challenges as a region if it wants to be a place where people want to live and bring up their families.
And so is intensification the answer there then?
Well, I think this project with Ruataniwha, and there's a second project that Fenton's referred to, actually are part of the answer, because what it does do is that it brings, if you look at the figures from the Opua Dam, for every 1,000 hectares that are irrigated, there is $7.7 million of cash that comes into that economy every year, and there's 30 new full-time jobs. So in the Ruataniwha case, you're looking at over $250 million of cash that will come into Hawke's Bay, and you will have 800 or so jobs. That region needs those jobs, it needs that money, but I also accept that we have to be balance that and be careful about environmental impacts.
Well, how can you do that? You just referred to another dam, and my understanding that dam is actually, there's some issues with that and that it's silted up, but you say potentially 800 jobs, you've got to be careful. This is a very beautiful region with, a fabulous history as our fruit bowl. Suddenly, if we start putting a whole bunch of black and white cows across that area, the impact on that region and the landscape and the rivers could be pretty catastrophic if that's not managed.
Well, I don't agree that it will be catastrophic at all, but I do agree that things do need to be managed. And the main thing that needs to be managed on the Tukituki River actually is the phosphorus levels. And the big source of phosphorus levels there, actually 70% of the source, is 4 small townships there whose sewage treatment plants aren't up to scratch. They are pumping in untreated or partially treated sewage into that river, and it's raising the phosphorus levels.
You don't need a dam to fix that, though, do you?
No, but you need to fix that anyway. But if you do fix that, as the Commissioner for the Environment said in her very helpful report last year, if you unpackage what water quality it's about nitrogen, it's about phosphorus, it's about E. coli, and it's about sediment. So, cutting down trees, takes a lot of sediment. The fish don't like sediment that much either. So I think we've actually got to look at what the real problems are in terms of water quality and look to fix those. And my understanding is that the plan up there is to really focus on that phosphorus, because that's the thing that will make the biggest difference.
There is the issue, of course, of allocation, whether there's a dam or not. How do you think that allocation process is going at the moment, Paul?
I think the key thing is to look at where the water is needed. The economic engine of the region is around the Hastings area. It isn't. This is a greenfields project, and anybody who thinks that a local body is going to be great at investing $600 million and making money on this project, I think is crazy. But what we have is existing investment.
That's untrue.
I'll give you just a... We'll carry on, Fenton.
We are not governing $600 million worth of investment. There is no $600 million. The opportunity for building a dam is worth 235 with some cost of money on top. The council will be up to 80 million of that. We've just announced we have private investors who are prepared to take 30 to 40% of that. The rest of the $600 million, let's be really clear on this, the $600 million includes a whole lot of inward investment to Hawke's Bay on farm.
Sure,
whether that's in the form of pack houses or irrigation.
Allocating.
So I'd just like to put that one to bed. That's actually untrue.
I mean, the key issue is to look after the economic engine, and they're not doing that. The priority should be the Ruataniwha River, where that feeds the water in Hawke's Bay and the Ruataniwha Plains around Hastings. We have huge aquifers there, a lot of room for potential production increases and intensification there that won't affect rivers because it's artesian water. And we should be focusing on that area and not worrying about this Greenfields project.
Neil Deans, everyone here is talking about economic growth for the region or the environment. You're sort of focusing really on a recreational activity to a certain degree. Is this a very small sidebar to this debate?
No, it's not. New Zealanders want a healthy economy, but we don't want it at the expense of the environment. And we claim to be clean and green.
Rachel.
Okay, so
I agree with Neil on that.
The issue, though, here is if you don't have a dam, you've got growers, you've got farmers, the possibility of intensification. How do you look after growers and farmers? And for that region, which has some issues, as you've just heard, with crime and unemployment and various
Rachel,
other things.
if you don't have the dam, you don't have choices. If you don't have water, you don't have the ability to grow things. And if you can't grow things, you don't have jobs, and you have more crime, and you have less people.
In your opinion, Connor, is there an alternative to the dam, or is it, you know, dam or be damned?
Well, I don't think there is many alternatives to the dam. I mean, Hawke's Bay has spent 50 years looking for ways that it can boost its economy and boost the lifestyles of its people and retain itself as a first world part of the country. And it's struggling. That's the reality. And if it doesn't want to have this dam, it will end up paying the consequences of that. And don't expect the young people to stay in Hawke's Bay if you don't have this dam.
But they won't want to stay in a river where, if they want to take their dogs down to that river, they die because of blue-green algal outbreaks. That's happening now.
Yeah, but that's just rubbish, Neil. You know that's just rubbish.
It's not.
You know, what they can do is they can take their dog and their yacht, and they can go to the lake, and they can go for a sail on it, and they can actually have a nice time fishing in that lake, because in a lake you have a lot more fish. But you can have a lot more fishing if you have a lake. You can have a lot more recreation. That's what the Opua Dam taught us, was that when you put in that, you have a lot more recreational value.
With the fruit growers, Mr Paynter makes some very good points. Absolute critical part of Hawke's Bay is the fruit growers. They've had a good season this year with you know, my understanding, an increase in exports. But let's sit down and have a chat and work out the values and some solutions, because for all we know, we're heading into another drought. It could happen this year.
We would love to sit down, but the engagement with the council is very, very difficult because there's a lack of information, there's a lack of trust. I mean, growers aren't out there on the street protesting just because they're politically minded. They're upset because of the process.
OK, I'll mediate. Let's have a meeting.
I'll put my hands up.
Time and date?
I'll put my hands up. Next week, whenever.
Okay,
I'll put my hands up and say,
give me a time
we
and a
will
date.
communicate harder. Well, I'm in town Monday morning, so any time from then on.
Well, we're in the midst of an election cycle here, and what we're trying to do at the moment is get some new councillors on and change the leadership. So let's finish that little scrap and have a chat afterwards. But this is not going away after the election. We're certainly keen to sit down and talk.
What we're highlighting here is...
Block voting with 4 candidates won't solve this. This is a scientific issue. Block voting, putting in a block vote isn't going to do it.
The issue here is a process one. This water is being managed by the regional council and every regional council in New Zealand for everybody. And that's just the point. And the regional council, every regional council has got this difficult task of trying to manage both for the environment and for water use. And the process is a lot of the problem here in Hawke's Bay. That there's been a lot of good work done, but there hasn't been the degree of engagement that there needs to be, because this thing has been rushed and pushed very hard.
It's autocratic, it's adversarial.
But you won't meet the chairman, though. You won't meet the chairman until after the election.
Very happy to meet him. There's other groups like the Twyford water growers who are meeting with him now. They've been through some process already.
OK, if there's no dam, what's the alternative?
We've been meeting with the Twyford group for 2 years on this issue.
And they're frustrated about it.
A stakeholder group. Well, they are, and let's keep talking. I mean, these are complex, challenging issues. We need to get a balance back into the freshwater debate in New Zealand, and let's put our values on the... Absolutely, okay. And we have been talking, Rachel.
When the community are on the streets
really
protesting, there's clearly not a good relationship going on. There's a lack of trust, a lack of transparency, and an adversarial approach of the council. They serve the regulations. They don't seek to serve the interests of the community.
You could go and talk to him Monday morning, Paul, will you?
No, I won't.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel.
Right. You just need to get more women involved. Honestly, that'd sort the whole lot out very quickly.
Would.
Thank you all.
You would.
You're right.
Connor English, Fenton Wilson, Neil Deans and Paul Paynter, thank you so much for your time this morning.